Finovate showcases cutting-edge banking and financial technology through a global conference series featuring short-form demos and thought leadership. Now, the conversation continues on the Finovate podcast.
Welcome to the Finovate podcast. Joining me today is Jouk Pleiter of Backbase. Backbase is a company who's been on stage at Finovate a number of times. I think I first saw them back in 2010, and it's been amazing watching their journey as they've grown into a global leader in the space. Jouk, for people who haven't seen you at a Finovate event, can you start with just a 30-second intro to what Backbase is all about?
Sure. Thanks, Greg. Backbase is a software company, and we help banks to kind of accelerate their digital transformation. So the digital part, think of Backbase as a digital hub that kind of orchestrates all your customer journeys, and it can get data from your traditional core systems, from your payment engine, from your card provider. And Backbase basically unifies all the data and the functionality from these traditional systems and kind of brings them to life on any touch point, any device, web, mobile, towards customers and towards your employees.
Yeah, so I know it's been one of the interesting things that's been fun to watch is the way you've kind of described yourself over the years. That word omni-channel has been a part of it. And, a lot of people like Fintech to fit into neat little buckets where they can easily categorize it. So how do you guys think of yourselves? Would you call yourself, a core service provider, an omni-channel solution? What category would you say you fit in?
Well, basically, Backbase is certainly not a core provider. We are more the digital layer, a digital hub. So Backbase sits on top of your core system. And the Backbase platform is actually core agnostic. It can integrate with any core system out there, but it can also integrate with Fintech players. So it basically is an aggregation platform that unifies the right content and the right functionality and then translates that into instant, great, 10 times better experiences for your end customer. Starting with mobile and then, of course, also web.
Sure. No, I think that's really intelligent because one of the biggest limiting factors that we've seen in fintech has been the outdated core service providers. And I think you guys have come up with a really creative way of kind of dealing with that and making it still possible to engage with some of these new digital pieces, these new opportunities that exist there. Can you talk a little bit more about how you were able to do that and how you guys came up with that idea of kind of sitting on top of those core service providers and being core agnostic?
Yeah, sure. I think replacing the core is close to open heart surgery. It's risky and it's a lot of work. So the biggest gain is actually not per se the core, but it's actually to optimize the online customer experience. You see that with Netflix, you see it with Uber, you see these kind of apps on your phone, and the whole battle is about who owns the customer experience. You push a button, you get transportation. You push a button, you get food delivery. You push a button and you want to manage your finances. So the digital layer is more important than the core layer. And therefore we said we have to invest in this digital experience platform. Yes, that is omni-channel. And for most, you can really innovate fast. And of course, then you have to leverage and reuse your legacy system. But you don't need to replace them. You can just keep them and you can really make your investment where you get the biggest return on investment, and that's in digital.
I like the way you were talking about it before we actually got on this call. You mentioned that some people refer to you as kind of the Switzerland of digital banking, this sort of neutral place where it doesn't matter what core you have, you can still find shelter there. How did that idea come up? Was that one from you, or is that one from some of your customers?
What we basically saw is that every bank has a different core, either by commercial providers or custom built. So it kind of, the market actually drove us to the concept that if you do digital and if you want to start outside in on the glass and you want to kind of create these seamless customer experiences, in every case, we needed to go back to all these different core systems. So that automatically kind of forced us to create an architecture that is core agnostic and can take data and functionality from any backend systems in an instant.
I think the other word that kind of is on the tip of the tongue right there is freedom, because I know at least in the US, a lot of banks feel to some degree held hostage by their core service provider. But if you can take whatever core service provider and really offer these opportunities, there is this element of relief. You can say, oh man, I have all these opportunities now, these options that I didn't have before. And it's not also, I think, unfair to say that there is a parallel. If you have money that you want to make safe, put it in Switzerland. If you have banking systems you want to make safe, go for the Switzerland of digital banking. So I think that is a really interesting one for yourselves. Now, one of the questions that I've had, we have Finovate Europe coming up right around the corner. You've seen a lot of the fintech and banking ecosystems in the US and Europe. What would you say each region is best at?
Yeah, so I think mostly first, before we go into the regions, really there's this global concept, and that's everywhere, that you need to kind of create a 10 times better experience. And it is really crucial for financial institutions to control their own digital future. If you don't do that, and if you cannot control the customer experience, you're probably going to go out of business, in an extreme example, right? So that's why this freedom and flexibility to be core agnostic and to really focus on digital innovation, that is crucial. You see it in the US with Marcus, you see it with Chime, you see it with Stripe Cash, Square Cash. Those are examples. In Europe, you see N26, you see Revolut, you see Monzo. All these players, they show how important it is to really optimize the customer experience and to basically innovate like a neobank. And that speed and that freedom, I think that's really crucial. And it's not a nice to have. It is really decisive for the future of any financial service institution.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you're right that it is an extreme example, but going out of business is a real possibility for banks who aren't able to take that control. And I think one of the things that you see in the European market, you have a regulation that forces people towards open banking, and there are some kind of defensive aspects to that where banks kind of have to deal with it. But I think there are some really interesting opportunities that can come from that as well. And I think in the United States, where we don't see that type of legislation really being on the table, there is still this possibility that banks could engage with it and get a lot of positives out of it to provide that 10x better customer service. And so that's one of the things that's going to be really interesting to watch as well. But coming back to the question of this difference between the Europe and the US, what would you say is kind of the biggest limiting factor on innovation in each of those two regions?
If you look at the US, I really think it's the need for faster payments, and there's various initiatives there. If you look at Europe, there is, of course, open banking, but it's still very defensive. So I think faster payments and really go for an open banking offensive strategy, those two elements I think are really crucial.
Sure, sure. So coming back to the customer experience piece, I think this is something that you've been able to do really well. I remember the demo where you had account opening inside 60 seconds. You actually turned the clock around towards the audience and said, we can go start to finish inside 60 seconds. And that kind of comes back to the point that you made earlier, push a button for food delivery, push a button for ride, push a button for digital banking. And I think that's really the closest we've seen to someone being able to do that. But if you could, how would you summarize the way you guys think about the modern banking customer? What are their priorities? What do they want that they're not getting that you guys are really trying to provide for them?
I think the overarching trend we see is, one, a 10 times better experience. Remove all the possible friction. And still, believe me, there's a lot of friction in the customer experience across the different channels, but there's also a lot of friction in the front office for the banking employees. So that's really number one. 10 times better, remove all the friction. The second part probably is to go beyond the traditional banking capability, because if you want to become the preferred banking app or financial app, you probably also need to kind of help people to kind of, how do you save? How do you give them advice about their financial wealth and future? How do you protect them? How do you integrate as a small business owner that, for instance, the accounting capabilities are directly embedded in the banking experience? So it's very likely that we have to go beyond the traditional banking capabilities, which needs to be great and frictionless. But we also really need to kind of embed any other aspect of your financial life directly into the app to really become the preferred, universal, help me to manage my financial life type of application.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what you've been able to do so far has been really amazing, especially, if you go back and watch some of those demo videos from 2010 and see where you were then and where you are now, certainly you've come a long way. But to your point, there's still quite a bit of friction. There's a lot left to do. And I think this is kind of an industry-wide challenge. It's not just one aspect of finance that we need to really be thinking about this. It's kind of a holistic thing. Where can we reduce friction? How can we create that better customer experience? And how can we make customers excited about banking? Because ultimately, those are the banks that will survive. Will be the ones who are able to create that connection with the customer. So, last question for you: just what's next? What's kind of coming down the pipeline from Backbase? Are you guys still innovating, still expanding into new areas, or are you focusing on the pieces that you've already put into play? Just give us a little taste of the future.
Yeah, I think I would like just to react also maybe a little bit. I think what you just said, that it's not about. I think it's not about banking. I think it's really overall. It's all about how do we help people to improve their financial life. I really think that's kind of as a North Star, and I think that's also a big mistake in the financial industry in itself. It's all product centric, it's bank centric, but still to make the paradigm shift, to make it customer centric, I think that's major. If you look at our major updates upcoming, we are just introduced our next generation cloud-based solution. So you can now run Backbase globally on every continent, completely in the cloud as a managed service. We're really excited about that. We're aggressively expanding in the customer onboarding and product origination space with dynamic product configuration, helping banks to increase their share of wallet with their customers. Everything digital, everything with straight to process, no paper. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, but the overarching theme is 100% digital, end-to-end, remove friction, make the end customer happy, and really try to bring all these things together to become kind of that ultimate financial services app. And it's not a banking app. I really think it's help me with my money app. That's kind of the North Star to aspire for.
No, I love that. I love that idea as a guiding light that you have this North Star. Just focus on improving customers' lives, making them more comfortable with their finances and putting them in a position where they can, there's a bell. But just to finish the thought, putting them in a position where they can really improve their financial quality of life. And I think if you have that as your guiding light, then good things will happen. So again, the company is called Backbase. I would encourage you to go check out some of their videos and watch the evolution for yourself. You can find them all at Finovate.com. Jouk, pleasure chatting, and hopefully we'll see you back at Finovate before too long.
The Finovate podcast is produced by Informa Connect in association with Provoke.fm Media. Check out Finovate.com for information on Finovate's upcoming shows and to learn how you can get involved. The discount code Finovate Podcast will save you 20% on tickets to all of our events. And you can email us at info@finovate.com for information on sponsoring, speaking, or demoing. Thanks for listening.